Get started here. Going to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Lynn Campbell and I'm the Director of the Office for Catholic Social Justice Ministry of the Archdiocese of Hartford. And the office is very pleased to bring you this presentation tonight where Father Cheah will speak about his book, Anti-Asian Racism, Myths, Stereotypes, and Catholic Social Teaching. Father Cheah has made Asian American studies part of his career, primarily focusing his scholarship on race and religion. He has worked as the chair and professor in the Department of Philosophy, Theology, and Religious Studies at the University of St. Joseph's here in Connecticut. Back in 2001, Father presented a workshop for us on anti-Asian racism as part of our Open Wide Our Heart series. And you can find that recording on our website or on our YouTube at catholicsocialjustice.org. So tonight we thought instead of a formal presentation that we would offer more of a interview format. So Father has an opportunity to speak about his new book. So welcome, Father Cheah.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you to Bishop Rosaza and Bishop Battencourt for inviting me to this webinar conversation.
Okay. Well, and let's start off with probably a very simple question, and that is, what drove you to write this book? What was your intention? Why did you feel you needed to write this book?
Actually, I actually reflect on this question when I was writing my annual Christmas reflection to my friends. I do that every year. I guess now with the surges of anti-Asian hate and violence, it prompted me to use my platform to speak and write about Asian American experience and anti-Asian racism. It's very hard to describe what it means to, or what it feels like to be Asian American to those who are not part of the experience, because the pervasive and destructive stereotypes, the perpetual foreigner, yellow perils, and the modern minority myth, these toxic stereotypes, part and parcel of the Asian American experience, and they often occur at the level of subtleties. And those who are not part of the experience may feel compelled to admit to hearing our story and our experiences with a defective interior ear. Nonetheless, it's important for us to tell the story, even if few people are listening, because our stories and our experiences, our contribution are deemed essential to what it means to be Asians in the United States, what it means to be Asian American in the United States, what it means to be Asian Catholic in our Catholic Church in the United States. Our experiences and also our stories are part of the missing pieces, if you will, an attainment of authentic racial justice, which cannot be achieved until all the story, all the people, all the racial ethnic groups are included in the fabric of Americanness. That's in a nutshell reason why I wrote this book.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, we had done an Open Wide Our Hearts, dove into that several times in the past few years. But I think your book goes beyond that, because there were some things lacking or missing, perhaps, from Open Wide Our Hearts. And I know in particular you had mentioned that, when they talked about racism in that letter, they kind of spoke about it in a passive voice. They didn't really name the sinner. In your book, you identified the names of the sinners or called them out. If you were to write Open Wide Our Hearts, what would you have done differently? Would you have named the sinner? How would you have gone about doing that?
That's a good question. First, they have to ordain me bishop. Then I'll go to a USCCB to try to convince the other bishop, which would be a tall order. But seriously, I think if I were to write the pastoral letter, have a chance to rewrite it, I would name the system that Jim Wallace and James Cone call America's original sin, and that would be white supremacy. I know this term evoked a knee-jerk reaction and can set people off. So let me spend a few minutes explaining that. In my book, I talk about white supremacy as from the perspective of construction of legal construction. So, but I'm going to do it differently. Usually people who have difficulty when they hear the term white supremacy, but they associate with KKK or neo-Nazi or some other white racial terrorist group. They might even complain that they're not white supremacists. They might think that you're labeling them as white supremacists, which is not the case. It is a system, first and foremost, like any system, like systemic racism is a system, structural racism system, and white supremacy is a system. To use the Robin DiAngelo definition, a system in which whiteness and white people are central, and they are seen as inherently superior to people of color. Well, one might say that I don't see myself inherently superior to people of color, but that's great. But if you are white, more likely than not, your social location is in mainstream America, and then you have benefited from the system. Let me give you maybe a couple examples. If you can turn on the TV set and know that you will see assume that you will see somebody who looks like you when you turn on the TV set, or watch a movie and assume that the hero of the movie or the protagonist of the movie will be someone from your own racial ethnic group, or be assured that Euro-American people, culture, history, and achievements will occupy the central space in the textbook that your children will be using in school. You can assume all of that, then you are recipient of white privilege. The system that enables you to make that possible is called white supremacy. Let me give another example that's more considered more clearly. For those of you old enough to remember the TV series Kung Fu, that was Bruce Lee's idea. In fact, I think he wrote the script of the first episode, and he was supposed to be the star of the show. But Hollywood has a different idea. Hollywood complained that Lee looks too Chinese. What do you mean he looks too Chinese? He's playing the part of Chinese monk. Who do you want? David Carradine? Yep, that's what they want. David Carradine got the job because Hollywood wants a white person as a lead role. They don't want Chinese playing the lead role. So David Carradine is a recipient of white privilege. And the system that enabled him to get that job, even though he wasn't the most qualified person for that job, is called white supremacy. Now, I never called David Carradine a white supremacist. I just say he's a recipient of white privilege. And the system is white supremacy. I didn't come up with that name. It was it was already there, but people just get knee-jerk reaction to the name. White supremacy becomes very dangerous when it becomes a normal operation in an institution. And that operation is often invisible to many people. And that's why we have to name the system. Otherwise, you pretend like it doesn't exist, or you don't know it exists. It becomes insidious. It has a snowballing effect, and it reshapes. Once the manifestation of white supremacy in the 19th century is not the same as it is today. It takes different form, different shape. And unless we either name it and capture it and try to contain it, it's not going to go away. That's why naming is important. What I named the sinners, well, if the sinners who use this ideology to marginalize another, to exclude another, to oppress the other, I will name those sinners. In my book, I named the actors involved in the Irish and Chinese interaction. They were both, they came here in the United States in a sizable number about the same time, plus or minus 10 years. And both experienced racial and religious bigotry. And the Irish suffered a lot at the beginning, but Irish knew that they could pass white. They knew that the privileges of whiteness is not beyond their reach. And one of the reasons they knew it is because they're European, basically. The other reason is that citizenship was available to them. Even though they were seen as less than white in the community among the native white Protestant, legally they were seen as white, and they could take advantage of the 1790 Naturalization Act to become citizen. To be accepted as citizen, to be accepted American, they have to secure the position of whiteness within the American racial hierarchy. And at that time, in the 19th century, you do that by being racist to another group. At least that's the usual manifestation. And the Irish did that against the African American on the East Coast. Noah Ignati wrote an entire book on that, how the Irish became white. He focused only on Irish relationship with African American on the East Coast. He didn't touch the Chinese. So I filled in the blank and I did the Chinese. And in many ways, the Chinese were better target for the Irish. In part because Chinese are different race, culture, religion. Not only that, but the Irish came to California after the Civil War to start a new beginning. A new place where there weren't that many white native Anglo-Protestant there. They could have more power in a new area. So they came out there. So when they juxtaposed next to the Chinese, the whiteness became more salient. And they often ideal opportunity to reclaim this whiteness. So unfortunately, instead of living out their Catholic faith, they put on the mantle of whiteness and persecuted Chinese just as badly, or even worse than they themselves were persecuted by native white Protestant on the East Coast. And by the 1880s, early on, with the emergence of anti-Chinese movements and the construction of Chinese as a common danger for both Irish Catholic and native white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, that offered a perfect opportunity for the Irish to put themselves on the side of the white Christian nationalism. So in other words, the Irish took advantage of the yellow peril depiction of the Chinese, the heathen others, and unassimilable and foreign others by casting themselves as defender of white Christianity. Race and religion are intertwined. It is used for the purpose for Irish to move to the center of American society. So the Irish exhibited native racism towards the Chinese, and thereby improving their position in the American racial hierarchy. Now, there are several implications out of this. And you can only get this implication when you name the sinner. One is the movement of Irish from being oppressed to become oppressor. Raises a very disturbing question. Is becoming racist a part of Americanization process? Do you have to become racist in order to become, move into the mainstream American society? The other thing is that this history is a warning to people of color. Be careful as we move toward the center of American society that we don't step upon each other. There are a lot of writing and talk about Asian being the next white, Latinx being the next white. For these two groups, be careful not to make the same mistakes the Irish did. It's not worth it. It's not worth being racist toward Blacks or any other group to move yourself into the center of American society. So these are some of the warning and implications could come out of history, and you can only get it if we name the sinners. Otherwise, you get an abstract history that really doesn't, you don't get the beef, the real implication.
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you for that history too. But in regards to the Irish-Chinese relationships, we don't hear of that often. I don't think we've learned it very well in our school. Earlier you mentioned something called the model minority myth, kind of being an outsider and insider. Can you dive into that a little bit? What do you mean by model minority?
Yeah, the Asian American as model minority, you have to break that term up. It's Asian American model not for white folks, but for other minorities. That's why I said model minorities. It's already a setup. Even the term is a setup to pit the two groups. A function of the model minority is to show that systemic and structural racism are not insurmountable because Asian Americans are successfully able to overcome it through hard work, education, family value, steadfast faith in liberal democracy. The implication is that why can't you do the same? You meaning the other racial minorities, especially African American, because this myth was emerged during the civil rights era. It was designed to pit Asian against African American in particular. Instead of protesting, pursuing self-determination, you put your head down, work hard, be self-reliant, you too can be successful. That's the message that is sent to other minoritized groups. So instead of addressing the systemic and structural racism that prevented African Americans from advancing American society, some of the movers and shakers basically redirected the frustration to Asian American by making them the model minority. So it's a false praise. It's not a real praise. The Asian American population at that time in 1960, 0.5%, not even 1%. The bulk of them was the island of Hawaii. They're even fewer in our mainland. It's not much to give something away to this tiny little group. Now, for first time, they don't look at us as the race problem. They change that to race solution. Let's loosen some structure. Allow them to go to college and things like that, so that the model will fulfill that myth. At the time, the Asian American among the Asian American population, most of them were born here. They were native, they want too many immigrants. The majority of Native Asian American population were U.S. born. Like other U.S. born population, they really want a model minority. It's a myth that created it to redirect frustration to this group. On the flip side, because they are regarded as model minority, the impression is that Asian Americans do not suffer from racism and discrimination. Survey after survey shows that Americans believe that Asian Americans do not suffer from racism. But when they did a survey in I think 2019, is in my book, Pew study did the survey. They asked Asian Americans, African American, and Latinx. Asian Americans said they suffer from racism and discrimination as much as the African American. Asian Americans 75% said they did. Africans 76%. The Hispanic 58%. And they asked in the same year in a different survey to white folks, majority said Asian Americans do not suffer from racism. So there's a discrepancy, and that's in part created by the myth. So it's you get on both ends. On one end you got pit with the other minority. On the other hand, people think you don't suffer from racism, and Asian American usually do not get the same level of civil rights protection as other minority. Because if we look at model minority, we look upon as model minority. A case in point would be Vincent Chen, Chinese American, about to be married, and he was basically murdered by two white unemployed auto workers who thought he was Japanese, and they used a baseball bat, whacking his head, and killed him. They killed him because of his race. It was hate crime, but neither one of them spent a single day in prison. So some of the consequences of model minority myth. In terms of the insider outsider thing, the black-white binary, where whites are put on top, black at the bottom. That's a binary that is pivotal in U.S. history. It's been there for a long time, from the very beginning. But Asian American doesn't fit that well in that binary. We fit better in the more, and Cheah would say, horizontal binary. So one end would be model minority, the other end would be perpetual foreigner. Both binaries, the ideology operating both binaries is white supremacy. It's white supremacy that maintain the black-white binary, and white supremacy that maintain the inside-outside binary. Just because you are seen as a model minority, what's it called? Honorary white. You can lose it the next day. I showed up in my book with Amara Walker, the backup CNN journalist and the television person. By all accounts, she's is honorary white. But when she will walk down the New Orleans airport, she received 3 racist, harassment and racist epithet and things like that. They all look upon her as foreigner. So anyway, so the two binary has the same ideology that created it and maintained it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. One thing I noticed about your book is that there seems to be a pastoral dimension to the book, right? It's Catholic social teaching reflections. And I think one of the things that you comes out is the theme of forgiveness, right? Jesus calls us to forgive 70 times 7. And you tell the story of Noel Quinton, I believe is that his name?
Quintana,
Yes, who suffered horrific crime. But he was the man that was praying the rosary in the bus and was slashed in the face and very seriously injured. But yet my understanding is that he was a very forgiving person. Can you talk a little bit more about these themes that you brought up of forgiveness in regards to evil done to us and to horrific crimes?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we shouldn't overlook in this. We tend to focus on the evil part. And when Quintana told basically a small, originally he told the story some video. I don't even know what the station was. Small tiny station. They had forgiven the person who attacked them. Then the mainstream media did not care. But if the mainstream media carry him or being slashed in the face, they picture him everywhere. So that shows you where our values and what our priority lies, which is sad. Now, Quintana is among the people who are victims of horrific violence during this COVID-19 pandemic. Quintana stands out. Somebody who can do something godlike that we would refuse to do. He was able to forgive the man who slashed his face with the box cutter. It's a very deep slash from ear to ear. And after over 100 stitches, you can clearly see where the slash went. And not too many people can do what he did. And I think part of the reason he was able to live out this, the unpalatable directive of Jesus to forgive our enemies, just as God forgives those who hate God. Because I think part of the reason he was able to do that is because he did not identify himself with the pains and hurt of being a victim of this horrific crime. In other words, he did not allow what happened to him to be the defining point in his understanding of who he is. I think that's the key. That is something that his attacker and other people who do violence cannot do, because they identify with the hurt and pain. They wallow in the pain and hurt. Allow that to define the identity. When you wallow in your pain and hurt, you become you want to do back to other people. You want retribution. You're full of anger, and that emotion will carry you, will have a life of its own. And Quintana did not allow that to happen to him. Anyway, that's just my analysis. I mean, I don't know for sure, but so that's the amazing part of the story, that you're somebody able to do that. In the Christian tradition, people able to do what Quintana had done are called holy people. Another person that comes to mind was a lady by the name of Cheah. I just remember her last name. The same name as mine. She's a 75-year-old grandmother, and I think she was somebody took a swing. A street person took a swing and hit her in the face and things like that. And her son set up Go Get Me Fund, whatever the page on the internet, and he raised over $1 million. And Cheah made a decision to give all the money back to the community, give it to the community to fight against anti-Asian racism. This was a very generous woman. He didn't. Now he could have used some of that, for herself, for her injury and things like that. But she didn't. She gave the entire amount to the Asian American community, and it reminds me of that poor widow, and Jesus and I think Gospel Mark, Jesus and his disciple watching the people coming to this temple. And it's customary to make offering at temple before they walk in, and at that time they don't use the paper money, so you can hear the shriek of the wealthy as they pour the coin into the collection box, and then came the widow, just dropped 2 tiny little coin, and Jesus called his disciple over. I want you to observe this. This poor widow contributed more than all the other devotees. Like this poor widow, she was able to do something that most people could not do. She gives something of herself, not only for herself, but to a community, to the people that she loves.
Mm-hmm. These stories remind me a little bit of the Good Samaritan, and how Pope Francis uses the Good Samaritan, because it's a horrific crime that happens to the man on the side of the road, and it's generosity that helps him.
Yeah. It's I think his latest encyclical for Fratelli Tutti, he used the story of Good Samaritan to expand our hearts, to embrace the foreigner in our midst. And he talked about some of the citizens with full rights, and yet they are not seen as they're seen or treated as foreigner in their own country. And Asian American can identify with that, because we often see it ourselves as foreigner in our own country. It remind of there was a thing that run in New York Times, I think a couple of years ago. New York Times asked, 20, 30 people, Asian ancestry, how do you feel to be Asian in the United States? I read through all the comments, with the exception of one. Every other responses says they don't feel being accepted. They feel like being treated as foreigner. That theme of foreigner is very much a quintessential experience of Asian American.
I'm going to pause for just a moment and talk to our audience and ask that if you have any questions, if you would type them into the Q&A box, and we will try to get to them at the end of our conversation. We are not going to be using the chat box or the raising a hand, but if you have a question, type it into that Q&A and we'll try to address that later. But Father, you were just talking about perpetual foreigner, right? And I'm thinking about our parishes, right? And do our ethnic parishes kind of reinforce that stereotype of perpetual foreigner, by having ethnic parishes? And if so, how can parishioners get the benefit of worshiping in a way that they're comfortable, that it's culturally meaningful, but not reinforce any stereotypes of being a perpetual foreigner?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a tricky one, because it's both yes and no. It depends on when they arrive in the United States. If they're a recent arrival, it's going to be full of ethnic celebration and ethnic stuff, and that's fine, because that's where they are at this stage of their acculturation. Let me start with my own personal story. I remember in graduate school, we had a multicultural liturgy, and the student co-organizer called me up one day and said, "Joe, we're having this multicultural liturgy. We want people from different culture and nationality to come dressed up to this liturgy. can you, knowing that I was born in Burma, he said, could you wear something Burmese? I said, I don't have anything Burmese. And there was a long pause. But did you come from that country? Yeah, I came as a kid. But when I was a kid in Burma, where I grew up, all the kids do not wear the Burmese garb called longji. They wear pants because that's the practical thing to do. Longji is like a skirt. It's ankle length long. It's like a cylindrical shape, cloth. You step into it, and then you kind of tie a knot on your waist. You can't run with that thing. You could trip yourself, especially your kids, and you can't jump. You try to do that, you're streaking naked throughout neighborhood. It's not designed for running, and that's the reason why kids do not wear them. As the background info, now everyone has to wear them. That's because the military government, their sense of nationalism. They tell people what to wear, what to eat, what to think. But back on when I was there, we don't wear them. So I have never worn anything Burmese. Of course, I think he didn't believe me, the guy who called me. That's his problem. Most of the multicultural liturgy across the country are celebrated in this fashion. The politics of multicultural liturgy expect Asian American to put our culture on display, to put our ethnic costume, to bring ethnic food and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And this is very meaningful for the immigrant population. Help them to preserve the culture, it provided ethnic reinforcement to pass the ethnic identity and culture to the next generation, and all that's good. Even help Asian American to remind us of our Asianness. And so this kind of celebration, the focus on Asianness, has benefit. It is for both immigrant population and Asian ethnics. And Asian ethnics are people who are born here, whose family have been here for many generations. Asian ethnic need to be reminded that the Asianness of the identity is not given to them. It's given to them. They did not choose to be Asian. And oftentimes, the most important aspect of our identity and our relationship are those that we did not choose, but are given to us. Either we're born with it, or somehow we received it. And it's a good reminder to Asian American. Now, having said that, there's a place to celebrate multicultural liturgy by putting our culture on display. But if we do that consistently and exclusively, we run the risk of feeding into the stereotype that Asian Americans are perpetual foreigner. This will not be the case if we live in a society where racism is not a problem. Because we live in a racialized society, we need to balance this kind of celebration with Asianness with Americanness. So what do I mean by that? First of all, let me qualify something. Asian American, to celebrate the culture, the identity, whatever, they have to reflect on their own experience in America. Having said that, you'll be hard pressed to find an Asian American liturgy in this country, because liturgy is used to celebrate an ethnic community. You go to Filipino community, you will find a Filipino liturgy. There may be Americanness element incorporated into the liturgy, but you will not find an Asian American liturgy. The same way in other communities. If you go to Hartford, downtown Hartford, and the Korean are celebrating the, let's say, Korean New Year, like the old European, when they first came to the United States, they want their own, the priest from the old country. So the Korean will ask the, Korean priests are studying in New York or wherever to come over to say mass in Korean. And afterward, they have big celebration, dancing and the Korean outfit and singing and all Korean food. And that's normal. That's where they're at in the journey in the United States. There's nothing wrong with that. But even in the first generation community, immigrant community, you can incorporate Americanness in ways that they will find it acceptable, because the quintessential experience Asian American, all of us experience every generation. The idea that Asian American, Asian are seen as foreigner. We all experience it in our everyday life. There were no problem incorporating that in the liturgy. We do it appropriately. You can do it in terms of song, in terms of dancing. That's a little more difficult, I think. You want to try and come up with some new ones. But we ought to do it in homilies and in reflection, because teaching, education is essential if you want to undo these stereotypes. And when I say teaching, we incorporate Americanness into the liturgy and employ education teaching. The focus is not on immigrant. The focus is not even on the Asian American. The focus is on the dominant group. Because oftentimes the problem is with social location. The type of liturgy that I initially described, where the people put on the costume and the singing and dancing, and this is what I call "where are you really from" type of liturgy. Let me recount the story I told you last time about my roommate at undergraduate at USC. And he's not a Catholic, so I asked him to join me for the Catholic Mass one day. He agreed to do that. He went to the church, and the church had a welcoming party and greeters. And one of the greeter came up to my roommate because she recognized he's someone new. And the first thing she said, "Where are you from?" My roommate said, "Well, we're from USC." "I know, where are you really from?" "You mean where I was born?" "Yeah, I was from San Francisco." And she said, "No, where is your family from?" "Oh, where are they born?" "Yeah, my mother was born in San Francisco. My dad was born in Chicago." And then she walked away. This is a typical interaction that we have with people from the dominant group, and when people that we don't know that well, they come up to us and ask, where are we from? They're expecting an Asian answer, either in an Asian city, Asian country. If it's not, the next question is, where are you really from? And that's when you get the microaggression. So the kind of liturgy that I first talking feed into that kind of mentality. Whether the person in the question knows or not, the word really try to implicate that we're not, we are the other. We're not real Americans. And there's a long history in U.S. that says we can never be U.S. citizen. Is codified in law. And there's long history in the United States where we are the butt of the joke, we are made fun of. Think of Fu Manchu. Think of Breakfast Tiffany, Mickey Rooney playing the part of the Japanese, the buck teeth and eyeglasses and sing-song pattern speech. People laugh, but we're the ones who suffer. All of that stuff is in the background. It's passed down from generation to generation without people even knowing about it. It comes out when they encounter us. Especially when they say, "Where are you really from?" But not to reaffirm these type of thing in liturgy, you have to balance out with Americanness. So what I mean by Americanness is take something that Asian American, Asian United States really experience that the vast majority of Asian in the United States can identify with. Yes, I do experience liminality. Neither here nor there between Asian American and so on and so forth. That's meaningful to me. And how do I incorporate in our liturgy? Because when I go back to Asia, they can spot me right away. I'm not fully Asian. Even though I look like that, speak the language fluently, they know I'm not fully Asian. And yet when I come back to the United States, they don't see me as fully American. I'm neither here nor there. Our scripture is rich with the story of liminality. And that's what we encounter the sacred. There are ways to incorporate that, way to celebrate that, not just for the Asian, not just Asian American, but especially for the Americans. Especially when dealing with stuff that are of different social location, you need to listen. Now, the simple stuff I mentioned to you, where are you really from? If your social location has shielded you from seeing yourself as the other, that's perfectly normal question. There's nothing wrong with that. And you ask a million people from some same social location, they'll say there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that they are too sensitive. But just because a million agree on that doesn't necessarily mean you're correct. That's why it's important to listen to people from other social locations, to understand where they're coming from. You need to do it outside the liturgy. You need to form discernment group and things like that. To undo these kind of stereotypes, it's not just a matter of just come to church and you can do that. There has to be willingness to be able to say, yeah, I'm open to learning this stuff. I'm open to see how people find in different social and cultural locations that are different from mine. Maybe I'll learn something from it, and they can learn something from me. That openness has to be there. Otherwise, this problem will continue. Anyway, I think on some mobile, just want to stop right now.
We have some questions that are coming in now. I'm trying to combine some of the thoughts, but one is in regards to kind of the Catholic Church, right? So have you seen anti-Asian Pacific Islander racism in the Catholic Church, and what is the Catholic Church called to do, right? What takeaways do you have for the Catholic Church to kind of dismantle these stereotypes?
Yeah, so some of these stereotypes are pure on the surface, very simple, but are deeply ingrained. Because we're not looking at the reality in the same way. As I said, sometimes where you're really from have a different take within church setting. So people will come up to say, Father, when would you convert it? So they just assume that because I'm Asian, I can't be Catholic. Just that people assume that I'm Asian, I can't be born here. Things like that. So it has a lot of twist, but it's the same thing. You can tell people are converted sometimes because the way they handle the thoroughfare or whatever. But as a clear Catholic, Catholic mass is celebrated the same way everywhere. So, it's not those kind of things are not obvious, but it's the only thing in the face, my appearance, give away different answer, different question. These are called micro type of thing, micro aggressive type of behavior, and micro is casual racism, so casual that people think it's not racism, but it affects us, at an emotional level, psychological level, and spiritual level. and physical level toward the end, after many years of receiving this. So micro are not just micro, it's very destructive, but it is it's a lot of racism at that level, and it's so casual that people who do them are not aware of them, and they think they're not done nothing wrong from their perspective. So how to deal with this is not easy. It's just, like I said, you have to have a listening session, willing to learn from each other and things like that. I think it's helpful to bring it up in Sunday liturgy and things like that, remind people that people do come from different social and cultural locations, how they see things, and kind of introduce them slowly, and then maybe they want to come to more and more come together, at the parish for some listening session to learn from each other and things like that.
Okay. It's a kind of a different question that came up, but one that kind of affects even my family members, and that is regards to Caucasian parents who have adopted Asian children. And so when they were young, the children were the center of attention of white parents, but now these children are now adults, and now they are considered a minority. And as parents struggle to really have an understanding of what's that like, and how is it that we can perhaps help or guide those of us who have adult children who are Asian while we are not Asian ourselves.
Yeah, now identity is one of those things that the adoptee, whoever undergoing, has to go through, and our identity changes over time too. The immigrant population was first came here may see themselves as whatever country they come from. This come from China, as seen the Chinese, as after especially younger ones, they grew up here, they may see later on Chinese American and whatever. The identity changes. It's like the question that Jesus asked: "Who do you say that I am?" The identity is that's a deeply theological and spiritual question. It's not just an anthropological one, because at the deeper level, beyond the casual greeting that we can see, the way we look and things like that, the profession that we engage in, our religious background, our the postmodernists would say that the two identities are hardcore to us, hardwired to us. That's our race and gender. That's what people notice us the most. And but beyond that, at the core is a humanity. We all have the same humanity, but the come to understanding what the human entails. I'm a human being, but I'm also a human being of Asian descent, and also human being of American descent, things like that. Each person had to go through that phase, and to be supportive of the children as they go through the identity thing. And it's not an easy phase to go through, and it takes some time for them to come up with their own identity. And again, that may change, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, the identity, the whole group of people change all the time. We used to have Latino, Latinx. Now we have Latinx or Latinx and things like that. The whole group is changing identity. The Afro-American, the African-American, and that's in some way that's the that's a natural phase that people go through. We don't want other people to name us, and when we name ourselves, we go through the process. Well, it's okay now, but maybe 10 years from now, the younger generation don't like it, you want to change the other names. But anyway, it's a process we go through. And it's a very spiritual process, very theological process. Yeah, just think of Jesus' question, who do you say that I am? And Peter would always say that, you are, the Son of the living, Jesus Christ, Son of the living God, because he was able to see to the core, at the heart of humanity, what St. Ignatius would say, we human being fully alive, God. That kind of
Right.
expression.
Glory of God.
Yeah.
We got some got some questions about again how churches can respond, and particularly now we're in Lent, and if there are any ideas where we can tie into our Lenten prayers ideas for anti-racism specifically, ideas for anti-racism specifically with anti-Asian racism, kind of a simple starting point where we can also a simple starting point on how to talk about white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what can we do during Lent to start a conversation here?
Yeah, a number of things you can do is one of the things you can do is look up that time what I think is a newspaper, maybe magazine. It's called How Do You Feel Being Asian in the United States? And they have actual response from Asian from different ethnicity, and you can see the threat there that most of them do not see themselves as being fully accepted, and so and that goes beyond and beyond the violence during this period. Is basically saying that this is the experience of Asian American that has throughout the century, that they don't seem to be fully accepted in this country. This is backed up by laws and in the entertainment industry and popular culture, all the stuff. So it's not just a simple switch you can just change overnight. It's something that we have to process through, because influence all of us, whether we realize it or not. So maybe get some conversation going on that. What does it to see people whose social location is always seen as the other, as seen as a foreigner, and if your social location is one that your Americanness has never been questioned, you can learn something from that, and how to be more welcoming, as I think Pope Francis said, to the foreigner, in this case, to our citizens in our midst, who see themselves as a foreigner. So that's one thing I think of. The other thing is some of the violence that's going on in the country, and our media is biased. It's still going on. It's just that they're not reporting it. It took them a long time to even report some of the violence that went on. The question is how, where is the violence coming from, and how can we do that? How can we help that? And you look at some of the very violence that been perpetrated against Asian elders and women. They have one thing common: all the perpetrators have mental illness, and that we have a major problem in mental illness, and we don't have enough resources provided to community of color to deal with this, and we have mental illness and also in Asian American community. Just recently, you had two guys in Half Moon Bay and Monterey Park, just shot up people for no reason. Well, one has a reason, but you have to be cuckoo to shoot people to begin with. So that's the major problem in terms of mental health, and it's a major problem in the country. You see shooting all the time. How can we help our people deal with mental health instability, to help them live in society as a productive citizen? And that's something we can think about.
Yeah, certainly a social justice issue, and things that are happening right now in our state, right, is the funding for mental health services and preserving that, if not enhancing that. Certainly we could be all advocates for mental health services. We see the need, we know the need. We've didn't get to answer all the questions, but I think a lot of what you said during your talk did answer and incorporate some of the questions. I have one final question before we end, because it is 8 o'clock, and that is, when do you see an Asian priest? I'm sorry, an Asian Pope? Do you ever envision an Asian Pope? When's that going to happen?
And maybe as soon as the next Pope, because the story is out out there that the two guys, it was a front runner right now for the next Pope, and one of them is the Luis Tigo from the Philippines. Oh. So he's been up there even the previous papal election, but then who knows, this time it may be his turn to get elected Pope. That may be sooner than we think. Yeah. It won't be me though.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Father Cheah. Is there any last words you would like to share with folks before we sign off?
I don't know. During this pandemic, I have friends and family members, older friends, elderly friends who live in San Francisco Bay Area, and they have some that are afraid to go out to the grocery store, to go to pharmacies, or to take a public transportation, to go to the doctor, whatever, or even walk around the neighborhood, for fear that to be verbally harassed or worse, physically assaulted. And that's the that's in a civilized society, people, especially vulnerable populations, should not feel they be should not feel to have that kind of fear. They should be able to do things they need to do for survival and to live a happy life. And the virus of hate and violence that accompany COVID-19 is despicable and dangerous. And this moral virus, hate and violence, has existed in the country even before, since the beginning of the Republic. And anti-Asian hate existed in this country even before the significant number of Chinese who came here in the mid-19th century. What COVID-19 has done is to bring to the surface the sins of our past, that we are not adequately dealt with, or we have simply dismissed. And we are kind of doing that with this pandemic as well. They suffer, and then after the pandemic over, they'll be back to where they were until Chinese and American fight in the South Pacific, and we'll be targeted again. So we don't really deal with the sin of our past. We just let it go and then dismiss it, and it come back and cycles. For Asian Americans, is whenever there's an economic downturn, or when there's tension between U.S. and Asian nation state, especially war between the two, we're going to get it. Asian Americans get it. During the public health crisis, it would be great somehow we can deal with this problem and just let it go. And it will come back again. It come back again, come back again. Well, I was hoping to leave a positive note, but sorry.
Well, it's you have, because you opened a conversation that all the listeners here were able to hear you and to perhaps get a little bit more comfortable using those terms that you mentioned earlier about white privilege and white supremacy, and just a little bit more, we're all a little more aware of what's going on, and give us something to think and act upon during our Lenten season. So and thank you, Father. I see a lot of show of hands of people sharing their gratitude and appreciation for you as well. I apologize not getting through all the questions, but you might find your answers in Father's book on anti-Asian racism. And he's around. He's at St. Anne Church in Avon very often, as well as at University St. Joseph. So no stranger to us here in Connecticut. So thank you again, Father, and thank you all for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you, Leanne, for having me.
You're welcome.